On October 8, 2022, the bridge built by Russia connecting it with Crimea underwent a mysterious and sudden deconstruction event. The world was quick to give credit for the explosion to Ukraine, but the nation hasn't actually come forward yet to claim responsibility. It's almost certain that the attack on the Kerch bridge was the work of Ukraine, but the question is how? Using aircraft is out of the question given that the entire area is very well protected by S-400 and S-300 air defense units. American stealth aircraft could likely evade these defenses to get close enough to launch standoff munitions, but Ukraine simply lacks the capabilities. Missile attack is also extremely unlikely, as to date the United States has refused to give Ukraine the long-range attack weapons it's been asking for months. The distance from Ukrainian-held territory to the Kerch bridge is also considerable, over 120 miles. This does put the bridge inside the range of the U.S. Army Tactical Combat Missile System, or ATACMS, but this is the exact weapon that the U.S. has so far withheld for fear of Ukraine using it to strike inside Russia and escalate the war. But it isn't impossible this is the weapon responsible, given that right before the attack on the bridge, Ukraine had offered to give the U.S. complete oversight of all targets it used long-range weapons on. There's a possibility that the bridge was mined by Ukrainian special forces, who have shown incredible skill and creativity throughout the conflict. However, the currents under the bridge are treacherous and the waters near it patrolled by the Russian Navy. It would then require operators to make a significant climb up to the floor of the bridge itself to plant the explosives. Not impossible, just extremely improbable. What's likely is that the Kerch bridge attack was undertaken with the use of a truck bomb, though details are extremely scarce. Was the driver of the truck aware of his payload, or did Ukraine use a suicide bomber to carry out the attack? Suicide attacks have not been a feature of the Ukrainian playbook, so this is unlikely, which means that the payload of the truck was unknown to the driver. The attack managed to kill 3 people, damage one of the rail lines, and destroy one segment used by cars. It has crippled motor vehicle traffic in and out of the area and put a serious hamper on the use of the motorway to move supplies and troops into Crimea. But if the goal of the attack was to shut down Russia's capability to use it for resupply, then the attack failed. Within days, the all-important railways were once more operational. Russia famously uses rail to resupply its troops, a serious deficiency because it lacks the truck transport capability to then move those supplies from safe railheads to the front lines. The further away the front is, the slower Russia can move supplies, as it requires its limited truck pool to drive further for longer. But the attack has left Russia shaken to its core, as evidenced by the fact that in retaliation to the attack, Putin ordered a barrage of missiles against mostly civilian targets in Ukraine. Kyiv was hit especially hard, with multiple civilians killed, as missiles landed on a pedestrian bridge, or near it, as Russian precision weapons have never really been precise, and a public park. The attack was almost a knee-jerk reaction to once more being humiliated by Ukraine in a place that Ukrainian forces were supposed to be incapable of reaching. Even more than that, though, it's not just a war crime but also foolish, as Russia expends what remaining precision weapons it has, attacking civilians instead of the military targets that are even now defeating it on the battlefield. While the attack on the Kerch bridge might have been a tactical failure, it had a significant strategic value. For starters, it once more puts Russia on the back foot. The Kerch bridge is a critical link between Russia and occupied Crimea, through which much of the weapons, personnel, and vehicles needed for the war in Ukraine flow. Severing this vital logistical artery would cripple the ability to resupply Russian forces in Crimea and in the south of Ukraine. But just the fact that Ukraine managed to attack what is supposed to be a very secure feature far from the front shows the vulnerability of Russia to asymmetrical attacks, and defending against these types of threats is extremely resource-intensive. When the United States was waging its wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, it had to devote significant resources to countering asymmetrical threats from terrorists to guerrilla attacks on supply bases, consuming a lot of its manpower and limiting the scope of the operations it could undertake. The U.S. is, however, far more capable than Russia and was able to successfully prosecute offensives while protecting from asymmetrical threats. A lack of capability isn't the only defense, though, as Russia must now dedicate manpower and resources to protecting areas once seen as safely out of reach of Ukraine. And manpower and resources are 2 things that Russia is critically in low supply of. The attack also had a significant effect on the morale of both the Russian people and its military. Every time Ukraine does the impossible, it makes Russians feel more vulnerable. This has had a very real psychological effect on both the population and conscripts, which are even now being thrown into combat. If Ukraine can strike such sensitive areas as the Kerch bridge and supposedly safe air bases deep inside Crimea, then where else can it hit? And the frontline Russian conscript has to ask himself also, was this the work of saboteurs, or is Ukraine fielding advanced NATO weapons that are now being aimed directly at you? It's a hugely demoralizing turn of events, for sure. The bridge, however, has significant value as a target for one other reason. It basically immortalizes Russia's annexation of Crimea. It's an impressive feat of Russian engineering, stretching over 10 miles in length and featuring a span for both rail and road traffic. Construction began in 2015, a year after Crimea was seized by Russia, and meant to legitimize Russia's claim to the territory. At a cost of $3.7 billion, the bridge was completed in record time in 2019, officially making it the longest bridge in Europe. Putin himself was present at the ceremony opening it for traffic, signaling a new height of Russian power and prestige. And that's why the bridge has significant value for Ukraine as a propaganda target. Destroying or even just damaging the bridge is like directly attacking Putin and the legitimacy of his special military operation. But for Ukrainians, the bridge is a symbol of Russia's aggression and the great crime they perpetuated in 2014 by seizing Crimea, traditionally known as the Jewel of the Black Sea for its vast beauty. Destroying the Kerch Bridge is not just a strategic goal of Ukraine, but an act of revenge. If in the future Ukraine can manage to fully down this impressive span, it'll almost certainly signal not just the collapse of Russia's supply lines into Crimea, but the very collapse of Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. Now go check out why is Ukraine's counteroffensive so successful, or click this other video instead.